The video you're about to watch is an excerpt from our weekly podcast. It goes out every Wednesday. If you want access to that, just head over to our Patreon page, which lets you support the channel for as little as $1 a month. Just head over to www.patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. Okay, so this is normally where we talk about the main podcast, which this week we're actually drawing from a question that one of our patrons left on our Patreon feed. Taurus Trio asks, my question is, do you guys have a particular weapon or game object that is memorable? Okay, so what's our kind of favourite weapon or game object or gadget, I suppose, that's memorable from any game? This is a really good question. It's, you know, just as well as any character or theme or setting or anything from any video game, weapons are also really important because, you know, they're basically your main method of interacting with the game world, aren't they? Shooting stuff and chopping stuff and bashing stuff and whatnot. It's really important. Yeah. So let's talk about the Tripcaster specifically first. So Jake, Liam, you both played Horizon Zero Dawn, didn't you? Yep. What did you think of the Tripcaster?
Personally, I didn't even use it that much.
Did you not?
No.
It's the best. It's the best weapon.
I struggled to even remember what it did. You know, I remember
well,
you could use it. I remember you could use it to trip up certain machines, but
it was awesome because it used the machine's momentum and size and aggression against them. So it would take a little bit of forward planning. So you could use it reactively, which was also awesome. But the way you're kind of supposed to use it, I suppose, is you just set up a few of them and then you just shoot one in the head or whatever, and then it charges towards you, goes through all the Tripcaster ropes, and then it gets hit with all these elemental effects that you've laid out for it, like, you know, fire damage, electricity damage, or whatever. But it's just awesome because these things are massive, and then you just use that against them. That's why I really liked it. But you could use it like reactively as well. So you could just be doing rolls and everything, and just casting this thing on the floor. So you just hit one point and hit another point, and then it would just create this trip line.
That's an important part of it, isn't it? You set the two places.
Easy.
They set the two posts, and it makes the trip. Not to be confused with the rope caster, which was the one which was also awesome, that you tied them down with. That was the one.
I actually did use that one.
So in terms of what our favourite weapons, most memorable weapons and items to use, some games, I mean, like Saints Row, Dead Rising, Ratchet and Clank, they make it their business to have big crazy weapons that are like, whoa, look how wacky this bazooka that fires ducks that breathe fire, you know, that kind of shit. So there's some games that really try hard to give you crazy weapons to use, which is cool. It's fine. Borderlands maybe is another one where you just have all these different infinite combos of guns and effects. But I think there are some just really pretty boring items, pretty boring guns, pretty standard things that really, really stand out because of how well the audio was, how well the feedback was when you used it, what happened to the bad guy or the game world when you used it. There are some ones that really stand out to me. So I'm going to chuck a few out there first just to get the ball rolling, right? One of my favourite weapons is the Gjallarhorn from Destiny, which is a bazooka type thing that also had like a cluster of missiles that went around it, and it was so overpowered. They nerfed it a little bit, but there was a long time where a lot of people, like, you couldn't go on a raid unless you had a Gjallarhorn, and it was like, sorry mate, no Gjallarhorn, no entry. And it's like, fuck, I want one of these, you know. So it made it like this, holy object. And then when you got it, it was so powerful, it was so satisfying to use. So that was one of my favorite weapons. There's a lot of really cool weapons in Destiny that I just can't remember the name of. There was like a shotgun called like Party Crusher or something like that was really, really fun to use just because it was so solid and feedback was so satisfying. Gears of War, the Lancer, a machine gun with a chainsaw on it. I mean, that needs no more explanation. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and this game was one of my favorite weapons, was the MP5 because of how I mean, even unmodded, like, I always remember I would be really good using whatever class it was that had the MP5, and I'd start the game for like my first multiplayer experience ever, and I'd be killing it with an MP5. I'd be really good, and then I'd unlock other guns and other attachments, and I'd use it, and I would get less good. So I always found myself going back to the MP5 after a while. So I really like that. And finally, the Colt Python revolver from Half-Life 1 and 2, which was like just this really loud, really powerful revolver that you could one-shot a lot of the enemies. It was so awesome to use. It's just like this hand cannon thing. It was amazing. So 4 guns there. I really am conscious of myself sounding like a lunatic whenever I talk about how much I enjoy guns, but only video game ones. So Jake, what any weapons that stand out for you?
The Masamune Blade from Final Fantasy VII is really iconic to me. I don't want to go for the Buster Sword because what it is about the Masamune Blade, and that's Sephiroth's weapon, by the way, is when you first play in that flashback when you Cloud and Sephiroth, and there's this giant dragon, and you're in Sephiroth's party. The AI controls Sephiroth, and you see what that blade does. That carves that dragging up like something, and you're like, I want that. And later on in the game, you get it. So the Buster Sword, which you start off with, it's memorable and iconic, but you are like, it's dangled in front of your face at one point in the game, and then later on when you get that, it's a bit of an achievement. But then actually, the weapon is quite shit when you've got it because you're over leveled. So
that's interesting.
Half-Life 2, the grav gun gets a mention, doesn't it? Because it's like the most awesome, cool idea for a weapon ever. And it powers up and you can move cars and stuff. But I always remember Ravenholm, when you go to Ravenholm and it's like that abandoned like mining town or whatever.
Yeah.
And you've got all the buzzsaws and you can pick
all
them
these
up.
conveniently placed blades.
Yeah, very conveniently placed heavy buzzsaw blades.
Yeah.
So that's one. Here's one that if you know, you're going to go, oh yeah. But if you don't, it might not mean anything. But in the game Turok 2, the dinosaur hunter game, there was the cerebral bore. Now the plot is in the title there. It was like this round weird gun and it shot an orb out of it, which then stuck to the skull of the enemy, drilled a hole in the skull of the enemy into its brain, cerebral bore, you get it? And then it exploded their fucking brain. So it was like the best, most badass weapon ever.
That's pretty heavy duty.
It is. Speaking of pretty heavy, there's actually a death metal band from Scotland named after that weapon. If you want heavy, there's that.
There you go, that's Jake's heavy metal fact for the day.
Grindcore, yeah. So there's two more that explain to
Sorry, grindcore. Was
it's grindcore, actually, yeah. Don't make that
just see the tattoos on this guy, don't upset.
Two more. Scorpion's hand thing from, Mortal Kombat.
God, yeah, awesome. How did I forget that?
In the film, it's a snake in it, but in the games, it's that spear thing, the whole get over here. Yeah. That's well iconic. And then, obviously, I'm going to have to say the Master Sword, isn't it? That's iconic as hell.
Yeah.
It goes through time with you, man. A sword that helps you go through time. Does it need any more explanation?
It's like some N-Dubs lyric. It goes through time with your man. All right. We'll leave it. We'll leave it there. The Master Sword and N-Dubs. Okay, Liam, what are your favourite weapons?
Off the top of my head, I'll start off with just the Keyblades from Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Just because the standard one is unique in itself. I mean, it's a key that's a sword, which is
iconic,
weird enough. But then all the different themed ones you can get, like there's a Nightmare Before Christmas one, an Aladdin one, all themed after a different world. Mm-hmm. And they stand out, they're so unique. And if you think Kingdom Hearts, you automatically picture that giant key.
Yeah.
No matter what you think about it. Second,
yeah, that's true.
Second up, I'd say the Gunblade from Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty iconic.
Another blade / something else combo.
Slash gun. Yeah, so it's an amalgamation of two of our favourites here.
Completely impractical,
gun and a blade.
In a game, it's great.
Yeah.
Next, I'd say the crossbow from Oddworld: Stranger's Wrath.
Oh yeah, that is a really obscure one, but it fired a lot of different stuff. Didn't it?
Yeah. In the fact that it's just your bog standard crossbow. But the ammunition it fires is live animals that you can use to capture outlaws and collect their bounties on them.
All of your guns, Liam, have reminded me of that scene in The Simpsons where Moe says, so with some simple stick and sellotape, you can turn one gun into 5 guns. And it's like a shotgun with like 4 weapons.
Shoot a weasel out of it.
Around it. Awesome.
What makes the Stranger's Wrath crossbow stand out so much is just because each bit of ammunition is a live animal, but they have a personality to them. So
so you're firing personalities at your enemy.
Exactly. If you want to distract an enemy, you simply load in a chipmunk, which this is an actual thing.
No brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you launch the chipmunk wherever you want the enemy to be distracted, and it just starts chatting to them, saying, "Hey, over here, want to be friends?"
Okay, so Liam wins this conversation
There's no way.
Easily, quite comfortably. I'm talking about Call of Duty MP5s, and you were there bursting out with the crossbow that fires personalities.
Chipmunk launcher.
I have to give a special shout out to the Golden Gun as well from GoldenEye 64. That's a classic in its own right. Okay,
cool. So what about things that aren't necessarily weapons that you can hold in your hand, like swords, guns, or anything? Because I've got one really obscure suggestion, but it is one of my favourite items in a game, I suppose, ever. Right, and it's incredibly obscure. Total Annihilation. You could build a giant cannon called the Big Bertha, and it took forever to build it. So Total Annihilation was this really old strategy game, right? So Big Bertha was like a nuke level weapon. So you could just build a nuke silo and fire nuclear missiles, but who wants to do that? So your Big Bertha is like this giant cannon, and it looks like a crane. It just looks like a crane, and it would basically fire any like a shell to any corner of the map. But it just took so much work to build, and when you finally had one, you're like, oh, we're in business now, boys. We're in business now. So you build 2 or 3 Big Berthas in a multiplayer game or something, and it was just it's just phenomenal to use. Just this really inaccurate but really heavy duty cannon that would just launch projectiles from one corner of a map to the other. Yeah. Best thing ever.
It's very topical, that, isn't it? Very real life.
What do you mean?
Just the whole mother of all bombs thing, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
I mean, Big Bertha, USA.
Well, I thought you were talking about because Dawn of War was coming out or something. I was like, what is he talking about? RTS?
I was about our possible impending doom.
The current political climate. Right. Sorry.
Yeah, cut that.
Okay, so Big Bertha, that's my big weapon pick. Wow. Has anyone got any others?
I know what yours is, Liam. Why don't you just go right ahead?
Most people probably expect me to say Metal Gear Rex from the first Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to say Metal Gear Ray from the second Metal Gear Solid, just because it's so badass.
A bit more agile.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a giant lizard almost, I guess.
Sounds like a giant robotic lizard as well.
And it swims through water. It can destroy naval ships and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, its main weapon is just a water cannon. It's nothing like fancy. Literally just fires water so fast. It can shred through everything, and it's just badass.
No, that's a really good
Metal Gear Solid Ray. You got any giant weapons that you're particularly fond of?
I was going to go down the object route, like posing the question and say the stealth camouflage in Metal Gear Solid 1, but no, I'm not. I'm going to go down the RTS route as well. And my favourite feeling of I've got a weapon of mass destruction that I'm going to unleash on the enemy team was on Age of Mythology, and you worshipped, it was like Age of Empires, right?
Yeah.
But obviously it had the twist that you could play the Greeks, the Egyptians, or the Norse, and you worshipped the gods, and whichever god you worshipped, you got that superpower. And I can't remember off the top of my head which god it was that you worshipped, but it meant that you could unleash a giant dragon called Nidhogg.
Sounds pretty Nordic, I suppose.
Yeah. But I can't remember because inside the Norse clan, you could pick different gods like Loki or Freya and stuff like that. And so you had your superpower. One of them was I can remember one of the powers was Barren Winter, which you put it on the enemy town and it froze all their crops, their resources they couldn't farm because it brought an eternal winter. And that was, I think, Odin's power. And then
vicious.
Yeah, and then wolves came and attacked and killed all of their workers. So that was that. But I loved
very indirect form of terrorizing your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. So freeze their crops over and bring down the wolves, which is pretty metal.
Big Bertha still,
but Big Bertha, but Nidhogg was a dragon in that, so dragons.
Is it a cannon though? Is
no,
the question?
It didn't look like a crane though, so it's got that going for it.
Okay. So scaling it back down now to things that you can pick up and stuff. What about just like objects? So there is weapons. That's one. They're really important in video games. It's just the way that you deal out damage, and the weapons cover such a broad spectrum of things to use. But there's something what I'm thinking specifically of is the lasso in Red Dead Redemption, because you can do stuff with it that isn't, you can tie people up, you can chuck them on the back of your horse, you can do things with it, you can drag them behind your horse and stuff like that, just with this piece of rope. So is there any other any items that you can think of in game that are just weird little bits to use that are really fun to use because of the way that the environment has been set up? You were talking about the gravity gun earlier. That's only that part of the reason that's so fun is because the environment has been set up for you to have fun with it, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So can you guys think of any other example of something like that, of just a fun object to use?
Straight to my mind, even more Metal Gear Solid now, I'd say the Fulton balloon system.
Oh my god, what an answer. Yeah.
The way you knock out enemy soldiers and then strap them to a giant weather balloon just to kidnap them and recruit them to your army it was just fun.
That actually changes the entire game. It's where you're it's like business decisions, this guy's a pretty good translator.
Yeah.
Okay, you can come. So you've got to decide if you're going to shoot these guys or kidnap them, I suppose, and then have them inexplicably just
join
become your ally. Yeah. So that's an awesome.
That's my pick.
Yeah, Fulton Balloon, I love that.
That's really good. But I'm going to go with the radio from Silent Hill 1 because it was really useful and really good touch. Yeah. You could have it equipped and it let you know when enemies were nearby. If you didn't have it on you or whatever, then you would get jumped basically by these undead freaks. So I think the radio, and it was good because just having it made you feel a lot more secure and safe.
Yeah.
But then whenever you heard the static, then you knew that there was an enemy nearby, and that to me is really iconic.
Yeah.
That whole Silent Hill radio vibe. That's
awesome.
That's top of my head. Yeah.
Okay, so but what I think it all kind of boils down to, whether it's a weapon or a kind of gadget that you use, what makes a good weapon in a video game or what makes a good gadget in a video game is three things really. The visuals, how it looks, does it look cool? When it leaves a mark on the final world, or when it leaves, you know, when it hits an enemy or something, does it look satisfying? Does it look cool? Can you blow shit up with it? And that's another thing. The feedback, the response, how does the world and the environment react to it? Like, destructibility made guns in like Battlefield Bad Company 2. The weapons in that felt amazing to use because they would punch holes in walls a lot of the time and stuff, and things would chip away from cover. Like, you know, you could have an assault rifle with a grenade launcher underneath it, which is a pretty standard weapon in COD, but in Battlefield, you can level buildings with it. You can create holes for you to jump through and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the destructibility is such an important part of it. So the response that the world gives you to the weapon as well. And finally is the audio. It needs to sound satisfying to use. There's some weapons that you can use, especially like, you know, the pistol in Doom.
Yeah.
Doom is an incredible game, right? They give you the shittest weapon of any FPS for a long time for the first like half an hour before you get a shotgun.
Yeah.
You get this like just pathetic little pistol, and half the reason that is so unpleasant to use is that it sounds like you're shooting paintballs.
Yeah.
It's like it just doesn't make an impression on you at all. So if it sounds like really satisfying, like if it's a sniper rifle, if it's got a really loud like snap or a crack kind of sound to it, you expect it to sound like that. So when it doesn't, then you're like, oh, that's a bit shit, isn't it? So that's why I reckon the 3 things you need for a good weapon experience in a video game. So, thanks very much for watching this video. If you want to hear or watch the full podcast, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. There you can get access to a full podcast every single week, and you can get access to our back catalogue, so stretching back about 8 weeks now. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff. There should be a link to some more content on your screens right now as well. We'll see you next time.